Hey everyone, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Let's take a look at everything that's happened in bodybuilding over the past few days, because a lot of important stuff went down, both on stage and behind the scenes. And before we jump in, tell me this. Have you been enjoying this new style format? If you are, hit that like button now. It really helps the channel. Alright, let's get straight into it. Hadi Choopan, one of the biggest names in global bodybuilding, saw his career affected by something that didn't happen on stage, but far from it. Recent events in Iran put the athlete right in the middle of an international controversy, and what caught the most attention at first was the silence. As pressure kept building on social media, fans and critics alike were waiting for any sign, any word, that would hint at his stance on the situation. After days of anticipation, he finally spoke out through 3 Instagram stories. In his own words, he began by offering condolences to the families of the victims and said he shares in the pain of the Iranian people. He was very clear in stating that he has never had any political involvement or personal ties to the government, trying to separate his image as an athlete from the country's complex political reality. He then went deeper and explained the reason behind his silence. According to Hadi, his pain wasn't individual, it was collective, and he chose not to speak immediately out of respect for the victims. He said that words spoken in the heat of the moment could cause even more harm. Even so, this cautious approach frustrated part of the audience, who were expecting a more direct and straightforward position. In the third statement, the tone shifts slightly. He reaffirms his pride in being Iranian, admits that he made mistakes, and asks not to be judged based on a single episode. He asks for forgiveness from those who felt hurt, both by his actions and by his silence, and says he doesn't care about fame or social media. According to him, the focus has always been his love for his country and his people. By the end of it all, one thing is very clear. Hadi is trapped in an extremely delicate situation. Any stronger or more direct statement could have consequences that go far beyond his bodybuilding career, potentially putting his own safety and his family's safety at risk. As pressure continued to grow online, Hadi Choopan started receiving support from names that carry enormous weight in bodybuilding history. Legends of the sport publicly came to his defense, highlighting not only his competitive career, but especially the symbolic role Hadi has always played as a representative of Iranian bodybuilding on the world stage. These athletes pointed out that throughout his career, Hadi has always proudly carried the Iranian flag, bringing his country's name to the biggest stages in the sport. At no point, according to them, did he ever show support for violence against civilians or for actions that go against basic humanitarian principles. For many, the criticism aimed at him went far beyond what was reasonable. However, the most sensitive part of this story came from an unexpected place. The harshest backlash didn't come only from outside critics, but from a significant portion of his own Iranian fan base. Known for being extremely passionate and highly active on social media, these fans were always the first to defend him in defeats and controversies. But now, they turned on him with the same intensity. This break with his most loyal supporters seems to have had a deep emotional impact on Hadi. Looking at his messages, you can sense a tone of sadness and even desperation, as if he wasn't trying to justify himself to the world, but to the people who had always stood by him. It's a clear shift in behavior from someone used to dealing with competitive pressure, not personal rejection. Even with all the offstage chaos, one question has completely taken over the conversation. Will he compete at the Arnold Classic or not? Over the past few days, bodybuilding news outlets started reporting that Hadi's US visa has been approved, information that, in practical terms, changes everything and reignites excitement around the event. According to these reports, he has already left Iran and is currently in a safe location, possibly Dubai, following a pattern he's used several times throughout his career. Typically, he stays outside the country until all the paperwork is fully sorted out, and once he gets the green light, he travels straight to the United States. That alone strengthens the feeling that his presence at the Arnold Classic Ohio is almost guaranteed. The fact that he spoke publicly on social media also carries a lot of weight in this interpretation. Speaking out during such a sensitive moment suggests that, at least for now, he feels he's in a more secure position. And when we look at his track record, the pattern repeats itself. Every time there were doubts about visas, travel issues, or bureaucratic problems, he still ended up stepping on stage. On several occasions, he arrived in the US just days before the show and still managed to bring an extremely competitive physique, proving that he knows how to handle pressure better than almost anyone. Now let's shift the focus to James Hollingshead, a name that always grabs attention whenever new physique updates pop up. In his most recent check-ins, James appears weighing around 298 pounds, roughly 135 kilos, showing a big, full look that, at first glance, seems highly competitive. In photos and videos, the physique looks impressive and gives the impression that he should be ready to win pro-level shows. The visual impact is undeniable. Offstage, James often looks like he's operating at the very top level of professional bodybuilding. Size, muscle density, and an overall solid appearance make a lot of people wonder how this physique doesn't translate into strong competitive results. And that's exactly where the core discussion comes in. Despite consistently looking great on social media, James has been under-delivering on stage for the past few years. In relatively lower-tier competitions, where you'd expect him to be fighting for titles, the results have been average at best, with placings that don't match the expectations created by his prep photos. So what could explain this gap? Extremely favorable lighting, strategic camera angles, an exaggerated pump, and even struggles with hitting peak conditioning on show day all come into play. All of that can make a physique look far better off stage than it does under the harsh, unforgiving lights of the judges. Now, with a new coach in the picture, the big question hangs in the air. Will James finally find consistency and turn potential into results? Or are we about to see the same cycle repeat? Another coaching change after yet another disappointing outcome? Another important point we can't ignore is Martin Fitzwater's latest physique update, especially because it comes just a few weeks out from the Arnold Classic. The most talked about image is a back shot taken roughly 6.5 weeks before the show, and when you look at it closely, it definitely raises a bit of a red flag. Despite the solid muscle volume, the conditioning in this specific update brings up some questions. The physique looks soft, with limited definition, clear signs of water retention, and a lack of deep detail, especially in the back. For an athlete at this level, and this close to one of the biggest stages in the sport, that naturally worries part of the audience. That said, it's important to remember that Martin usually looks much stronger from the front, while his back tends to be one of the last areas to fully come in. This isn't new. It's a pattern we've seen in several of his previous preps. On top of that, his track record works in his favor. He's already proven that when everything lines up, he can hit some seriously dangerous peaks. His fast metabolism and ability to dry out quickly mean that major changes can happen in a very short window of time. Right now, Martin does appear to be a bit behind compared to some of his competitors, but writing him off completely would be a mistake. Now let's move to another sensitive topic involving a very well-known athlete, Nick Walker, but this time, it's not about a major physique update. The issue here is yet another offstage split, specifically his departure from the supplement brand HD. There was no official statement, no public announcement, no goodbye post. People only noticed when the brand's name quietly disappeared from his social media. This adds to a recent pattern of frequent changes, both in sponsors and coaches. For many observers, this trend is starting to raise questions about Nick's long-term career strategy outside of competition. While this doesn't automatically mean there's a serious problem, the repetition of these breakups is increasingly being seen as a sign of instability behind the scenes. That said, it's important to be clear about one thing. Situations like this don't usually affect Nick Walker's competitive performance. On stage, he remains one of the most consistent athletes in the sport today, known for his extreme muscle density and his ability to show up in high-level condition when everything clicks. Physically, there's nothing dramatically new in these recent updates. Strategic angles and photos and training footage once again show absolutely massive legs in person. However, the video reinforces a point that's already well known. On stage, that dominance doesn't always translate the same way, largely due to Nick's structure and how his proportions stack up in direct comparisons. Now, dropping down a bit in weight, let's take a combined look at 3 classic physique athletes who are drawing attention right now for different reasons. First up is Paul Kanu, who's shown recent updates with a solid physique, good muscle insertions, and a structure that fits the division very well. Even though his recent results don't place him among the top favorites, Paul shouldn't be underestimated. While he may not have a dominant competitive resume, he brings a package that can become a real problem for newcomers or less experienced athletes, especially in direct stage comparisons. Next is Wesley Vissers, and the big question fans keep asking. Can he reclaim his Arnold title? The answer is straightforward. That only happens if Wesley brings the exact same elite level of conditioning and peak he showed in 2024. When everything is dialed in, he becomes extremely dangerous. On the flip side, Wesley operates with a very slim margin for error. When he's not absolutely perfect, his structure and lower body tend to limit his results, especially when compared to more complete competitors. He either shows up at his absolute best, or he's unlikely to fight for the top spots. Finally, there's Rafael Brandao. Recent images show that he doesn't look drastically out of shape, but there are visible signs of water retention and limited separation in the back, which is concerning given how close the Arnold Classic is. Still, this looks like a gradual progression, keeping the verdict open and making it clear that the next few days will be crucial in determining just how far Rafael can go in this competition. Now it's your turn. What do you think about all of this? Is Hadi still the favorite even with all this pressure? Can Samson Dauda dominate the stage when he comes back? Who worries you the most, or surprises you the most, right now? Drop your comment, join the discussion, and let me know if you enjoy this new style format, because it could easily become a regular segment here on the channel.